Promise is based on real-life stories and touches subject matters many refuse to admit as truth. Alien beings are living with us now and have since before the age of man. They come and go from different dimensions and worlds, allowing them to be with us at all times without our knowledge. Mike Davis is an alien abductee and has been abducted since age 4. Mike and his wife Susie will present cases of abductions that are so compelling one can't help ponder the reality of the phenomenon. They'll investigate areas in which aliens are likely to frequent, areas in which certain fundamentals exist, making them favorable locations for other beings to visit frequently. This show will investigate drawing elements, so maybe you too can meet real live aliens. It wasn't too long after the atrium incident when I saw those little beings that I was in kindergarten. I had just started and I was going early mornings, and I got out like noon. I'd get off earlier than the other kids. And the place I used to hang when I'd come home from school is I had a tree fort in my backyard. My mom liked it because from the back window of the house, wherever she was, if she was in the living room, she could see it. In the kitchen, she could see it. From her bedroom, she could see it. From the family room, she could see it. It was all glass, like I said, across the back of the Eichler home. And she loved that aspect of the home, so she could keep an eye on me while she did her work during the afternoon before work. And I could play, and I'd stay out of her hair and not be mischievous. So one day I remember getting off school early, it's like noon or whatever, and somewhere thereabouts, came home and I'd already had my milk and graham crackers at school, so I wasn't too hungry. I didn't run right and get anything to eat yet. And so I went to my backyard, and what I did when I got to my tree fort, I went to my tree fort, but what I usually did is I had a little cockapoo dog, a little white one, and he was my friend, and I rigged a basket with this rope and pulley, a tackle, what do you call it, pulley tackle, that you pulled, hoisted the dog up to the tree, and the dog would go out there and get into the basket. He just knew what we were doing, and he'd hop in that basket, and I'd climb in the tree, and I'd hoist him up there and bring the basket over, and he'd hop into the tree, I'd tie the rope up, and he'd hop into the tree, and he'd sit up there for hours with me. And what was nice was, the reason I spent so much time up there is that tree fort actually backed the schoolyard, and the school that I went to, our backyard, if you went over the fence, you're in the schoolyard, and right there was the playground off to my left, and then I could see all the kids out in the field there playing football, baseball, whatever games they'd play out there during sports, and it was just fun for me to see the older kids, and I just wanted to be out there and be a big kid too, and my mom knew that, but she thought it was cool and cute how I used to sit up there and watch this stuff, and actually many times she'd say, "What do you do out there? Why do you sit up there so long?" And I'd say, "Me and God are watching the world." And you know, she thought that was really cute, and I meant that. So I felt like me and God were watching the kids playing. I felt like God was there with me at all times. When I was raised Catholic, even as a young boy, taught about God, and that's who I felt my friend was. Okay. And one day I'm sitting up there and watching the kids playing their sports, what have you. And I told Petey to hop in his basket, and I hoist him down, and he gets out, and I climb down. I go in the house, I want to get something to eat, and I figured I was going to watch some cartoons. And as I walk through the sliding glass door back there, my mom is pacing, and she just comes around. She says, "Where were you?" I said, "Out in my tree fort, Mom." And she goes, "No, you weren't." I said, "I was out in my tree fort, Mom." She says, "You weren't out there." She says, "You jumped that fence, you went over to the schoolyard." I said, "No, I didn't." And I didn't. I was in my tree fort. I never did that. I couldn't even get back over the fence if I hopped. It was too high up. It was like a 6-foot fence. There's no way a little kid like me could climb that 6-foot fence without some sort of help or something. I said, "No, I didn't." And my tree fort sat on top of that fence, as a matter of fact. It came around, sat on top of that fence, and was hooked to the tree. I said, "No, I didn't." She says, "You were gone." She says, "You went over that schoolyard." She said, "I went out to the backyard. I looked all over for you. I couldn't find you." She says, "Petey's up in the tree, and you had the basket up there and the rope tied up there, and I couldn't get the dog down." I was just furious. She says, "You don't you ever go to that schoolyard again." I said, "I did not go to the schoolyard, Mom." And she says, "Go to your room. That's it." So I was punished. I really did not go to that schoolyard, and I never did. I never did jump. I was happy just sitting up there doing what I did up there, watching the kids. And I looked forward to the day when I was big enough to be able to play those games and do those sort of things, but I did not go over there. And it bothered me that I was disciplined for something that I didn't do. Now, when I think back at it as a man, and I think back at being a little boy, I didn't even realize that maybe I wasn't there. Maybe I wasn't in that tree when she saw me, and she did see the dog sitting up in the tree, and that would be quite startling to a mom. Very, very upsetting, especially the only rational explanation, especially when you check the whole entire yard, and you don't find your child around is he had to take off. Somebody didn't come into the yard and take him out of his tree fort now, did they? That stuff didn't usually happen back in the early 60s. I guess it probably did, but not as frequent as it is nowadays. And it wasn't the first thing in her mind. The first thing she thought as I went over there. So there's a real trust issue there, that she didn't believe me, and I was very disturbed by the fact that she didn't understand that I was telling the truth. But obviously there's missing time there, because I was gone, she didn't see me, and there was no time missing really from my life. So something happened. I don't know. I have no memories of that, but all I know is I wasn't there when she looked for me.
Have you guys heard of anybody or know of anybody around here who has seen aliens or?
You know, a guy named Greg.
He's down there right now. He's at the beach.
He's down at the beach. Yeah, go down there. You need to go find a guy named Greg.
He was. He wandered off.
Greg.
There's a lot of people around here who are speaking.
Wong, I could be saying. Don't quote me on that.
Do you mind if I use it? Do you mind if I use this on a show here? Because
I don't have a problem. He would be the one.
Do you mind?
Yeah. As far as that
I watch that stuff all day long.
But that's what this is. That's what this for. It's actually
he would
for.
Be one that,
I'm all about aliens.
That's what this is about. That's what this is exactly.
But he would be one that you would want to talk to with all.
So you do know people, though. You've heard of people who are that have actually say they've seen them and actually witnessed things, weird occurrences going on there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What's your name?
I'm Angela.
Angela.
Michael.
All right, peace, guys. Be cool, man.
Take care.
All right, man.
See you again.
All right.